Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. This week we're going back to the World Cup in Koper and we're looking at the path to victory for Yassine Talhaoui in the -57 senior male category. So if you have an interest in this, and even if you don't specifically have an interest in this, it's a great division, some great matches. Stay with us for this one, it's going to be good.
Everybody, welcome to episode 113 of Fight Chat Friday. So as Adrian said, we're going to do a deep dive today into the 57 division from the World Cup 2022, and we're going to have a good look at Yassine's game and what makes him the success that he has been recently. And he's definitely one of the guys on the block now that is really stepping it up a notch. And I'm excited to see himself and Vitali potentially in next year's Euros. Hopefully that comes to fruition and we can see those guys do battle again. Yeah, that will be good.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I first came across Yassine in Maribor in the European Championship there several years ago in Maribor as a junior, and lost out in a very close final, I think, to Ukraine in that one. But you know, the ability, the talent, and the potential was obvious at that stage. So really nice to see when people take those few years, realize the potential, you know, and we can see how successful Yassine is becoming at this stage, and you know, such an exciting competitor to watch as well.
Yeah, it's a bit cliche, but like, he's one of the guys who had the talent, but he drove it on and started to work really hard, and you can see that just from what he's doing on Instagram, and you can see like the training that he does. He's a guy who takes it very serious. He's over training with the guys in Team Triqui for a while and things like that as well. So obviously it's something that he treats almost professionally. So you can see that then, and the results obviously come true as a result of that.
For sure. So let's jump right in. And he started off in his first round with an old favourite of ours, a guy we know very, very well, Christian Koper from Romania. And, you know, this Kiki is just a veteran competitor in this division. He's been there, you know, for as long as I've been watching the division as such. And, you know, and he's not an old guy, which just tells you, you know, you can have 10, 12 years of a career in this, and it feels like forever.
Yeah, he's been around since I think 2007 when I went to the Euros in Slovakia. He was there, so he's around a long time. But yeah, Yassine is very, very sharp. You can see there on the big thing for me at the beginning is he's always on balance. When he does come forward off the side kick, he's either shooting that reverse punch and closing down the gap, or else he's driving forward. And we've seen this with Sergey from the 63 division. Gains a lot of momentum on hands from time to time. This is the version then where he just goes to the backhand direct. But he's well able to score off that turning kick as well after hands. And the front leg is always a threat. I love his intensity. He's always push, pull. It's hard to get a read on him. And then because of that, he just looks more exciting as well. It's hard to hit him. You don't know if he's in, he's out. And he's just busy on that front leg and then mixing the hands in lovely.
Yeah, and you know, we can really see that whole thing of being on top and being the one. He is very often, he's clashing and looking to benefit off of the clash. So as the legs are dropping, he's the guy who's coming down in the better balanced position, as you mentioned, and he's getting to hands very, very well. And, you know, I can see that every single time he gets to hands, he's looking for a high value finish as well. You know, so he's finding something that's either up the blind side, he's looking for that open side turning kick, you know, and then of course we have one where he doesn't actually get to finish on the legs, but the point is that he's looking for it, and he's looking to get value out of the breakthroughs.
Yeah, that shorter stance is something that we've been seeing lately. James is another guy in the 69 from Ireland who, he's able to use that shorter stance really well also. So it's something that we actually did a video on, short stance versus long stance, a while back. So it's an interesting take. It depends on your body type as well and things like that. But Yassine is able to do it really well because he's able to be very explosive from it. But
what he can do as well is that, you know, he has that shortened stance when he's on the front foot and he's looking to carry the front leg forward, but he's able to drop the back leg back out of there, create distance in his stance, and create space and time in his stance to make that defensive side kick when he needs it, or to be able to slip the body. So yeah, it is, you know, it's a signaling of intent that you're pulling the back foot in and shortening up the stance, closing the distance effectively to your opponent, but you haven't closed the back door for yourself. You can still slip your back foot away and make the distance long if you need to.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, like, it seems that Yassine is putting in a lot of work in his training and working very hard. And from the clips when I was putting them together, it's a minute and a half on average of action from his 3-minute fights.
Okay.
So that's 50% of the fights. There's a plenty of action.
Happening.
So that's a big tell as well when you're the person that's bringing that work rate to the opponent. You're very confident in your game, your conditioning, and your preparation essentially.
All right. So let's have a look at how we went on into round 2, where he came up against Vladislav from Ukraine. So again, this is a new competitor to me. I haven't come across Vladislav before, so it's quite interesting to see some of the new Ukrainian competitors coming out, over the last little while.
Yeah, quite a big guy for 57, tall and rangy, and he doesn't look small by no means. Like, looking at him, I would be guessing like he would be the 63 or 69 division based on his physique. But yeah, Yassine again, work rate off that front leg, busy. He found that back leg turning kick early on there, and then I think he started to find a home for that as the rounds went through. You see it here again. So he's able to use that really well on the particular stance we have here when it's left leg lead versus right leg lead. This is a shot that's available.
But I particularly like that, he's seen the first couple of engagements that Ukraine has initiated with that high leg, but it's not massive forward pressure. So he's putting the threat out there, but he's not carrying it forward with massive intent. And that's allowed Yassine to try that, that turning kick under the leg. And we saw that from Sergey as well, when we were looking at the 63s, that, rolling the shoulders, laying back into it, getting the turning kick under the leg. And even then, later in the match with those laser lifts or with the back leg exposed there, we're seeing him bringing that backhand very effectively.
Yeah, the backhand is a beauty from Yassine, and he's able to score it really well. It's almost like the scooping action he uses to get rid of the front leg. And then he's like on the defensive side as well. He's quite sharp. The defensive side kicks and the blind side flicky dolios to the head. He's able to pull them off nicely as well for the 3 points. But his side kick is a real threat. So it's like, do you put pressure on him? Do you leave him come to you? Either way, he has an answer. So fair play to him. He's a guy out there who's covering all bases and making sure that he's ready for all scenarios.
I quite like this combination as well in terms of that variety of threats that you were talking about, because we have a mid-range side kick, a side kick to the hip, and then stepping into the same range again, but going to the backhand. And when you're being presented with those kind of that, it's not inconsistent threats, it's varied threats. It makes it quite difficult for an opponent to start to read what's coming at you and make appropriate responses. So it's putting the initiative back onto your opponent to start to lead the match and be the one who's setting the momentum of the match, and that's not easy to maintain for 3 minutes.
No, definitely not. And one of the things I noticed as well, even here as an example, a lot of time when he goes to hands, he gets his opponent trapped, almost what we call a no man's land, where like they're a second behind and they have to readjust, and usually they get caught and there's a clash, and then there's a warning given on a particular side. But he's a great ability to be able to put people in awkward positioning. I don't know whether it's his footwork getting to the outside on that lead foot, or whether it's just his rhythm and momentum. I think it's probably a factor of both combining together, that he's just that slight step ahead in his timing and his rhythm, and then also his foot positioning is quite solid. But he's really effective at putting the other person in no man's land for a particular second when he gets the hands. Yeah,
I think absolutely. And those recent few clips there are a really good illustration of that what you're seeing is that ability to take the outside line on the front foot. So it helps that it was right versus left in this particular match. But he's able to pop his right foot outside of his opponent's left, slip that backhand in there, and as I said, often he's getting that little bit of a scoop. And I mean, don't get us wrong, we're not talking about a foul, but we're talking about deflecting the front leg out of the way. So the opponent is trying to recover that balance, and he's on the outside and the hand's already connected. So it's tough work to get back into that from the opponent's perspective. So again, really nice job done there. Moving into round 3, we had a familiar opponent in the semi-final with Axel Vargas from Argentina. So expecting tricky things in this match.
Yeah, two guys full of flair. And we start off with the kind of the intensity, but also a little bit of sussing each other out, a little bit of just kind of testing shots, let's say. So Axel, he's, as we mentioned, the South Americans tend to like to come under with that turning kick.
Yeah.
And Axel is one of the guys who tends to favour that shot. So what we see straight off the bat then is Axel not given any leeway. He's trying to push his own front leg back towards Yassine. I'm assuming these guys are familiar. I think they fought at the Warrior Open at least. So they have an idea of each other, and I'm sure there's a strategy at play.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing you always notice with Axel is that he has a range of techniques that are built around the fact that he's typically shorter than his opponent. He's not a very, very tall guy,
Good point.
for the division. So he does look for opportunities to really just play on that, drop lower into the stance.
Ooh.
That's the risk, though. You get caught with a headshot, with someone who has good timing, but it allows him to throw those X-ray shots, the shots that are coming under the leg, into the body, and those quick escapes, as the opponent goes for the high line to try and take the offered target of that lower head position. Sometimes lets him get himself out of corners and improve ring position.
Yeah.
But
what I do like from Axel is if there's a shot that comes when he's charging forward, he tends to go forward again, hoping that his opponent will fall over and he doesn't get the score. So that's just a sign of his experience. But we see here's one of Axel's famous shots. That's a patented one. I've never seen anyone do that before, but it's a cracker. He ended up getting hit himself, but
yeah,
like how he's able to get that mobility and flick that shoulder around, it's a cool shot, to be fair.
it's interesting. It's running that borderline where, hang on a second, is this a spinning back fist? I'm not entirely sure, but
Yeah.
it's I don't genuinely know how to answer that one, but I'm not a referee, so it's fine. I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly, yeah. But he's fighting to the death here. Last 10 seconds, he's going for it, putting the pressure on, giving as good as he gets. Yassine, he nearly ran into a headshot at the end, but yeah, shout out to Axel. It was his last competition. He's been around the block a long, long time and done some cool things, brought some eyes to the sport as well, and try to bring a bit of flair and his own personality, which is really cool to see also.
But I like, it's a great tactical puzzle-solving match as well, where, okay, I'll try this, that doesn't work, okay, well, we'll try this, okay, well, that worked a little bit, okay, we'll try it again, it didn't work that time, okay, now we have to do something new. And the guys are going through that routine and that cycle of testing, retesting, and it makes it visually very, very engaging to watch the match when that's happening. And it just shows the depth of tactical understanding that's there, that, well, okay, if plan A doesn't work, well, let me try plan B. Okay, plan B part 2 then, because that didn't quite work. And okay, well, if all else fails, let me take control of the initiative and we'll go that way again. And I think that was it was very well demonstrated in that match.
Yeah, definitely. And it's even the mental conditioning that you need for that as well, because there's a lot of testing and figuring your opponent out and trying to bait them as well at that high level. So it's the decision making that you need, and the good decisions in critical moments, which is key. And usually it comes down to you winning or losing the match.
Absolutely. So winning and losing is determined in the final, and will definitely have been, I think, a new opponent for Yassine in Uzbekistan. And so Ergashev then from Uzbekistan is also maybe someone that myself and Richie wouldn't be super familiar with, but they were so impressive across many of the divisions in the championships and so game to get stuck into the match.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, these guys are bouncing off each other back at home and have good training partners, so it makes sense for one of them to come through. There's a couple coming through. But Yassine started this extremely well, and he scored some crackers. Even the transition we seen there in the second or third clip, where he was on one side, banged in the backhand, and then flipped around the other side, pulled a high kick. His transitions and his footwork are just really, really good, and the way he's able to even there again, it's very, very high level.
I think the testing in terms of the pressure and the footwork, putting himself in a position to go from countering, he very often goes from taking a counter attack to being the next one to have a determined attack, and it just keeps his opponent unsettled, I think. And again, more than anything else, he does the simple things so very, very well.
That's it.
Good stance, really good balance, presents a good primary threat, has a secondary option in the bag if he needs it, all the time. Keeping that, you can see here, testing in the visual range, moving the front hand, but, slight change of direction. So he doesn't need to go and win the match there, but it's making it a little bit more difficult for his opponent to just go for him.
Yeah, it's this still close enough here. You can see on the little tiles, let's say, on the scoreboard, there's not a big score difference in it. He's still winning 4-0 and he's pretty comfortable. Exactly. So he still has to be tuned in there and alert. But so far what we've seen is, as you said, just good solid fundamentals, and it's nice for me to see somebody who's at this high level with a bit of flair, a bit of personality in their game, and using their front hand in a good guard, because now, especially for me as a coach, I'm starting to see a lot of my younger guys thinking that it's almost a cool thing to do, of carry your hand down low now, But
Yeah.
you can see he's actually getting a great return on his entries and being able to close down his opponent by the use of his front hand. It's not always there, but when
No.
he's intending on using it, it's in a great position always, whether that's defensive, so nobody can cut through as easily, or whether it's on the attacking side where he's able to launch in very, very quickly. So you see as his side kick lifts, he also lifts that front hand almost like a puppet string attached to his knee. And that's something that's really good as well. And I love the footwork here in this last clip.
Yeah, and I do think that creating differences in the visual space between himself and his opponent does allow him to sometimes appear a little bit closer, a little bit further away, and he uses that to get people to try and throw shots that they're really a little bit too close to throw, which lets him step through with the hands. So it is really about creating all that visual the whole time, and creating that threat of, will I go with the hands, will I go with the legs, and being able to vary that and keep the opponent guessing, really, really important.
Yeah, great ring positioning as well from Yassine, I have to say. He's always able to kind of have a subconscious understanding of where he is in the ring and circle out and reset where necessary. It's very rare that he finds himself in the corners and trapped in positions.
Yeah,
That's
that
obviously
dreaded 6 warning slide,
Yeah, absolutely, and it's obviously something like here he's scoring on the way out, fair enough, but that's obviously something that comes through from Wacko as well, because I know he does a little bit of Wacko, and the exits are a little bit more punishing in that particular field.
Absolutely. But, as we look at his progression through the whole competition, met some very varied opponents and some very different threats, shall we say, and dealt with them all really quite well, with a lot of composure, a lot of poise. But generally speaking, by making sure that he was the one dictating and keeping the initiative and dictating the pace of the matches. So, it just shows that, act, don't react kind of moniker that we've had is so, so important. If you can control the pace and the flow of the match, it's much easier than trying to solve your opponent, letting them try to solve you.
Absolutely, and that goes back to what we mentioned earlier. I think that all comes as well from the confidence you have from your preparation and how much you've been putting in. It's very hard to go out there and absolutely dominate and put the pace on someone, have a really high work rate if you know deep down you haven't put in that shift in the preparation. So I think that goes back to it again. It's about the simple things: train hard, train consistently, and compete often, and that puts you in a good position to be successful.
So we had as a follow-up to that, just a little bit of information from TKD Intelligence that was talking about the time spent on warnings and fouls and so on, but specifically looking at this division.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk through a little bit of what was shared there by Jamar?
Yeah, so there's a couple of bits, some about timing, some about fouls, warnings, etc. But as you can see here on the screen, the referee will intervene every 18 seconds from the start of the match. Now, these particular stats were taken from the 3-minute matches, so up until semi-final, I think. So each intervention usually lasts about 7 seconds, which is something we've spoke about in a couple of videos recently, and it's a hot topic right now as well, which is good. And about 6 warnings and a foul will be rewarded each match. That's an important point. We always harp on about the importance of warnings and fouls, and 6 warnings and a foul each match just shows
in a 3-minute
how important
match.
it is. Yeah, that is important because it will flip that scoreboard. You will lose about 28.5% of your time to the referee conducting his or her duties. So as we said, with roughly a minute and a half of action from Yassine in most of his 3-minute matches, and then you lose 28.5% of that as well. There's not much more time left on the clock, so you got to get in there, get your shift done, and put some work together to get the scores on the board. Yeah,
absolutely. So again, that was just looking at the where those particular stats came from, and when you look at the stoppages, that an average match lasted 3 minutes 33 seconds. So the some of those the clock will run, and some of those some of the warnings and fouls, the clock will continue to run. Some of them the referee will stop the clock if there's repositioning and so on. But it just shows you that on average a sixth of the match is sometimes added on with those when you average it all out, which is quite interesting. And then in terms of most of what including those stats did not include medical calls, which obviously are going to slow the match down and all the rest of it, but it's pretty much just a case of the normal in the course of play stoppages and deductions, which is why we're always talking about it. It'd be lovely to have more flow, less stoppages, less time deductions, or a stopped clock potentially, so that the warnings don't contribute to the result in quite the same way. But I do think that first stat that we had there in relation to an average over 3 minutes of 6 warnings and a foul, so 7 infractions would be awarded. and just how important it is that they're not all to you. So
Yeah.
for that to be the average, and we were seeing matches where 12 and 13 warnings were given, you know, that means there's plenty of matches where competitors are controlling it very well and keeping their score to 0 or 1 over the 3 minutes. And, you know, we've identified that there's a little bit of a landslide moment where competitors are losing 6 or more warnings. Things tend to go against them. You don't tend to win matches that you have conceded 6 warnings in. So whether you want to look at that is the -2 points in every card is a big deal, and of course it is, but also because what's getting you into position to concede those fouls is probably some retreating or falling. There's some ineffective scoring going on. You're moving yourself into a bad ring position, getting punished for it. So just something for people to have as a metric as they're training.
Usually with that as well, Adrian, like if you're going backwards or falling over, chances are the opponent has an opportunity to score on you as well, because you're in a vulnerable position. So it can be twofold as well, of you putting yourself in a bad position.
Absolutely.
But we can see like the people who are coming through and winning effectively, they're very disciplined with their ring positioning, their warning management, and that shows then towards the end when they need those clear scores.
Absolutely, absolutely. So folks, that's what we have for you for today. We have a little bit more we'd like to cover from the World Cup over the next little while, and as we said to you before, we've taken some footage from the ITA Irish Cup, which was a massive event there last week. 1,090 competitors across all of the divisions. So we'll show you a little bit of what's going on in Ireland and maybe some of the top matches from the senior black belt divisions in Ireland last weekend. So we're looking forward to getting into those for you as well. As always, if you have anything that you'd like us to cover, if there's any particular matches you'd like us to take a look at, please hit us up on any of the social media. We'd be delighted to get stuck into that for you.
Absolutely. All right. So if there's any suggestions, guys, let us know of who you want to see next from the World Cup. Who do you want us to cover? Any particular matches, any fights, maybe even some team fights. Let us know and we'll get stuck into those. And until the next one, we'll see you then.
See you then.